Well, welcome everyone to the Freedom Bros podcast, episode 19. We're going to do something really special for like episode 50 or 100 or something. I don't know what we're going to do yet, but we got to plan that out. So we're really excited to be with you guys tonight. We have an awesome show and an awesome guest from up in Alaska, where I actually did some silver salmon fishing before my brother died with cancer. And dude, we caught some you're like the whole fishing, right? Like huge.
Oh
Like my
yeah.
hands cannot get as big seriously as the fish that we were catching up there. So you come back here in Idaho and you're catching fish like this big, and you're like, yeah. So anyway, so we're going to have Phil Izon from Rank Choice Education Association. He's up in Alaska, helping lead the fight up there against Rank Choice voting. And so this is going to be an awesome show. We've got some other stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about Jim Woodward and what he's got going on and taking on Scott Herndon, a rematch of a few years ago. So that should be fun. And yeah, Dustin, how you feeling before we roll the intro?
Oh man, I'm good. We were making a joke. We had a meeting before this,
Oh, right.
Craig and I made a joke. We're both. My mom always told me, dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Well, today I want to be a U.S. senator like John
That's
Fetterman because
right.
I'm rocking the hoodie, and so are you. So we're both
Yes.
trying to beat John Fetterman.
Yeah. Oh gosh, kill me now.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So,
With that, let's roll our very over the top intro. Beautiful.
I'm amped up now. I was a little apathetic coming into the show. It's tired and stuff, but I'm amped now.
You're good to go. Oh gosh. Well, hey man, I'm back from my tour, so thanks for going solo last week. And we're down one more gun rally on October 14th at noon. So we hope to see everybody at the Capitol for that gun rally. Going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of awesome people there, and yeah, I'm really excited. Oh, Maria says there needs to be a dress code. There is. It's the John Fetterman show tonight.
If it works for the U.S. Senate, it can work for here. Come on.
Oh,
let's
gosh. Go. Yeah.
That guy's a stooge, but like, I mean, we've got a vegetable as president, and we've got a guy from the Adams family running in the Senate. I mean, it's amazing. Like, our politics is wild. It's wild. Yeah. I want that. I just want. Never mind. I won't. I'll stop there. But yeah, no dress code on this show at all ever.
Well, actually, to be fair, there was one guest that we had on who was getting dressed while he was on camera. Yeah. So we do want you to have some clothes on at least, when we start. So
typically that's a good practice. We should probably put that in our notes for all of the guests that we invite. No changing your clothing while you're on the show. It's not a thing you can do. But
tonight, dude, rank choice voting. I actually went and read through the Reclaim Idaho's ballot initiative tonight, and I have a lot of questions, and we'll get more into the details of our specific rank choice voting fight here in Idaho. But we definitely want to bring on Phil and get into the weeds on this.
Let's do it,
because this is, quite frankly, it's a complicated issue, and it's not done the same everywhere.
Yeah,
and it's funny talking to seasoned, you and other friends of ours who are seasoned political people, and we're sitting there going, well, wait, what about this? And this doesn't make sense. Why are we doing it? Why would they do it this way? I mean, so if we're kind of confused about ranked choice voting, imagine how the average voter is going to feel when they're introduced to ranked choice voting, which is why they don't want to talk about that part of the ballot initiative.
Listen, I'm old enough to remember the Bush Gore election, right?
Yeah.
Most voters, look, I love you guys, not smart enough to fill in a freaking bubble or push a little punch Chad thing out of a ballot. You guys think that we can do ranked choice voting? Come on. Yeah. We're gonna make voting more complicated when we can't even do it yet? Come on, like, sure. Let's do this.
Oh gosh. All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and bring on Phil. All right. Phil doesn't have a hoodie, but he's got a hat on. And so I think he's right there with us and just
Kind of like the
wearing.
Pebble Mine hat, though. It's a ranked choice voting with a cross through it. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
appropriate for the
I like it.
conversation.
We'll have
How
to
do we
flip
get one of those?
camera.
I haven't. I used to work for sale earlier in the year, but they're not. We don't have them for sale right now.
Coming soon, then. Coming soon.
Maybe
Yeah.
we might bring them back. I kind of like having like vintage collectible things from different political stuff. So
Yeah,
Fair
there you
enough,
go. There you go. So I guess Phil, can you give just briefly people a little bit about your background and why you had mentioned prior to the show when we were speaking off air that you're not really a political person, you're a businessman type, so what kind of drove you into this sphere because of this particular issue?
Yeah, so I've helped politicians in the past, but mostly in the technology side of things. So I've done like lots of people, like various governor campaigns. I volunteered on campaigns, when I was younger and stuff, just to kind of learn how things worked. And I did start a business with my brother, and I was a banker, commercial banker for Wells Fargo and Key Bank for about 10 years prior to that. And I did mortgage lending as well, and for Wells Fargo. So I left that, started my own business, and then started a consulting business. And then recently, I've been doing artificial intelligence cameras and computers for marine and aviation applications. And so I've done work.
Okay.
Work with like NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and things like that. So I'm way outside the political realm on most things nowadays. But last year after ranked choice voting, concluded during the time of the voting, my grandfather, who is about 80 years old, and I didn't know he had cancer at the time, but he did. He was dealing with cancer. He called me and told me he didn't know how to fill out his ballot, and that was pretty much all it took for me to get pretty. Start questioning things, and I was like, I wonder if this is like a regular occurrence. I assume because he's a pretty smart guy. He actually we just went hunting the other day, moose hunting, and he's like I said, he's 80, he's riding ATVs and stuff. He's very cognizant, very smart guy, and he, like I said, he just had cancer not that long ago, so he's tough too. So he would take the time. He's voted in every election that I know of. He'd take the time to learn about what's necessary to do the ballot.
Sure.
So for people to, the reason why I say that is, first thing that people said to me was like, well, you need to educate your grandfather. I was like, I'm not going to even try that. So
Right.
My granddad's like taller than me, bigger than me still somehow. And like, he beat me up, it's the reality of it. But it's just, we don't have that kind of relationship in politics. We never did.
Yeah.
He talked to me about Tucker Carlson or Donald Trump, but when it comes to, filling out a ballot, I trust he can do that. He should be able to do that on his own, but maybe not with ranked choice voting, and so I dove in a little further, and as I figured out, there, like I was talking to some poll watchers and poll people, and they felt like 10 or 15% of the people that went up to vote either didn't know how to do it, filled out their ballot incorrectly, et cetera. And I was just like, well, that's a major concern. And I started reading into ranked choice voting, doing lots of research into it, and then I will say it, here, like forever, people, we have. The ranked choice people are crazy. I'll go into detail on that, but they're crazy. They do, and like I'll explain a little bit from my experience and like from what I've kind of issues we're fighting against. But I did write the repeal for ranked choice voting, and did that in my living room. And it's a bill got approved by a lieutenant governor, and we're already over 100% of the signatures required to get it on the ballot. So yeah, things have gone really, really well, and we did that with 100% Alaskans and 100% volunteers. In the previous effort, they did their effort with they flew people from outside of the state to do their signature gathering, and that's the reason why I bring this up is important. It's a factor in this because that's how it's done in other states. So they don't use citizens, even though they use a citizens initiative process. They don't use citizens to do the actual signature gathering to get it on the ballot. They hire people, fly them in to do the signature process, pay millions of dollars. Like in Arizona's case, it was projected to be 20 million just to do that process. 20 million just to get the signatures to put it on the ballot. So again, they're not using citizens to use that for a citizens initiative process. So major issue there. Ultimately, they got it on the ballot here in Alaska, and it got voted on, passed by less than 1% during COVID. And so I was like, I think there's reason enough to ask the question again if people really want this. That's really the whole grand scheme of things. And so I did the repeal, put it on the ballot, got it out there. And as I was going through that process, I realized that nationwide they were pushing ranked choice voting all across the country. And I was like, well, I can't let them continue doing that.
Phil, can I stop you? I'm sorry. I want to stop you right there. Because you just hit on something I want to dive into real quick before we get into the nuts and bolts of what ranked choice voting is.
Yeah.
You said they are doing it all across the country.
Yes.
Who is they?
They is a combination of organizations. It starts with Arabella Advisors. So that's a big funder group. And they're the ones that kind of donate, so that money comes from like George Soros and a bunch of Bill Gates and a bunch of other people. And then it's even Warren Buffett and spread across all these nonprofits. And then various nonprofits, they're organized to do the push for national popular vote. They're push for ranked choice voting. And the push for back on gerrymandering of maps and things like that. So the main ones are national popular vote, ranked choice voting. Those are the ones I see. An open primary, which I want to clarify, it's not open primary, it's a jungle primary, which they're after. And so a lot of people are like, I've been even saying open primary incorrectly. It's jungle primary, what they're after.
Correct. Yeah.
So those are the three things that they're really pushing. And so people are like Fair Vote Minnesota. If you go to our website, there's like an entire list. There's hundreds of organizations that are pushing this, but they start off with Fair Vote, and then each individual state has its own ally that is individually assigned to push ranked choice voting in that state. So in like Alaska, it's Alaskans for Better Elections. In Arizona, it's Arizona Voter Choice, and so on and so on.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So I guess sorry, I'm going to add your I'm trying to add your website to your thing here.
Yeah, it's rankchoiceedu.org.
Yeah, I think I got it.
Yeah.
Choiceedu.org. Okay. So in your dealings with other people on this topic in Alaska in particular, what is the feedback, not from politically obtuse people, but like people who are just like, yeah, I thought this was a good idea, and then we went through run, and then I realized it was a horrible idea. And what percentage of that is there versus people that were just opposed to it versus
I'd like
people
to
that still
start off with the ballot measure language. It's important for people to understand how like these citizens initiative processes get going. So in the ballot measure language, they wrote essentially like it was getting rid of dark money at the very top, and then it talked about ranked choice voting and jungle primary in the middle. And so a lot of people thought they were voting specifically on a campaign finance reform, which, 89 of the, so on pages was campaign finance reform. And so I had to remove all those sections because I didn't want to do anything with that. And I felt it was a poison pill designed to essentially say that we're trying to bring dark money back to Alaska. And so, but that bill was actually funded by 99% dark money. So the bill to get rid of dark money was funded by dark money. So that's always ironic. It's just, unfortunately, citizens, like you pointed out, aren't always well educated, well informed about what's going on. They're easily tricked. And that's the problem with systems like this. They're easily manipulated. So I think people maybe selected this or signed on to this originally under the impression that maybe it would provide certain type of results, like getting rid of Lisa Murkowski, when in the long scheme of things, it was actually designed by people with her in mind to keep her in office.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So, because I'm just trying to, and so kind of to your point, and this is where I've talked about the ballot initiative process, because we're one of the few red states, like deep red states, that has an initiative, citizens initiative process. And I said, one side is okay lying, cheating, and stealing their way to victory on these issues, where our side is not typically about that, right? We're going to try and tell people exactly what it does and all that. And so my big concern, like here in Idaho, they're going to focus on the quote unquote open primary. They're already using veterans and saying, oh, our veterans have been disenfranchised by the Idaho's Republican closed primary system, and we need to bring the veterans back in. We need to open up the primary so that we're all involved in the process. And so, like you said, they have a way of just tricking people through the words that they use in order to get them to support, some sort of concept like this.
Yes. It goes into, I follow Idaho closely. And so with the AG essentially like being challenged on language or related to their ballot initiative and things like that. Similar thing happened here. It seems like they're just willing to toe that line. They're willing to lie on paper to try to get things through, make things sound good. I'll even tell you about some extreme scenarios of this is like here in Alaska, the pro ranked choice voting group plus Unite America and many of all their subordinates have shared that the voter turnout in Alaska was 48%. They have a chart on their website that says 48%, but the reality is it was 44.38%. And the reason why they don't want you to know that is because they say that ranked choice voting increases turnout. And this was the lowest voter turnout in the history of the state and the very first use of ranked choice voting. So they don't want people to know that kind of thing. And so they want to try to fudge numbers and make it seem like it's great, and it's not, unfortunately. And but it goes further than that. So, I mean, just as a label, I just make it very, very easy. I'm just going to read it down real quick. Is it better? Is it cheaper? Is it faster? Does it increase turnout? Does it eliminate spoiler candidates? Does it help third parties? And does it produce an absolute majority? So those are the questions I ask. And unfortunately, it doesn't do any of those things.
Yeah. Well, in fact, third parties would be eliminated for all. The one that Idaho has is a top 4.
That's right.
The Republicans are going to be the top 4 for all of it, except for maybe a handful of districts where Democrats would basically take all 4 spots. And so,
especially with a jungle primary, you run into that scenario even further. So now, it's just used here in Alaska. I say Alaska is the perfect example of everything go wrong with ranked choice voting. And so, just like you pointed out, in 2020 in the U.S. Senate election, we had 5 third-party candidates, and in the 2022 U.S. Senate election, we had 0 third-party candidates. So the only thing that changed between those 2 years is the use of ranked choice voting.
Yeah, and you said 2020 was the first year?
2020 U.S. Senate versus 2022 U.S. Senate.
Okay, yeah, it was okay. So 2022 was the first year you had ranked choice voting.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Okay.
So we had 5 third-party candidates be dropped off. So we went from 5 third parties in 2020 to 0 in 2022. Same race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out where they were coming up with this idea that it would help third-party candidates at all.
Because there's no data in the United States that ranked choice voting helps third-party candidates. And the Libertarian Party and many libertarians pitched that as saying that, this will be great for us, but there's actually no proof that is true. It only helps Democrats. There's only one Republican that's actually won with ranked choice voting, and that's Lisa Murkowski.
And you use Republican in air quotes, right?
Yeah. I mean, she's the Republican as establishment rhino as you can get, in my opinion. I mean, she pretty much is a Democrat. She's talked about changing her party many times, and it would just benefit everybody if she did. But But that's that open primary piece, because she was actually censured by the Alaska Republican Party, and so she wouldn't have made it through a closed Republican primary. In that circumstance, she would have had to run as a nonpartisan or a write-in, and Kelly Tabaka probably most likely would have won that election. And she did win in the very first round. Kelly Tabaka did win in the first round of the ranked choice voting. So are you guys familiar with how exhausted ballots work and how that?
Take us through it, man. Take us through it.
I go into exhausted ballots because I did that in Hawaii too. It's one of the very first questions I asked, because people don't know what that is. And it seems like it's probably the biggest flaw of the system. And so if you fill out your ballot incorrectly, like let's say, you're an old lady and you fill it out like a 5-star survey and you want to give everybody high ranking, your ballot gets exhausted. So at that point, it's thrown out. It's not counted to the final result. If you give Donald Trump and DeSantis the same ranking, both ones, your ballot gets tossed. And so there's lots of different, there's like 3 or 4 different ways for your ballots to be exhausted. One of the ways is like you just select one person. And in San Francisco and in 2011 and a couple other races, they found that Latinos, Pacific Islanders, elderly people, and even progressives are far more likely to select just one candidate. And if someone does that, they're actually hurting themselves when they do a ranked choice voting, because your ballot can be exhausted and ultimately not counted to the final result. And that can have some pretty drastic impacts. So for instance, Lisa Murkowski claims she got over 50% of the vote, and Mary Peltola both claim they got over 50%. But that's because they took exhausted ballots, the percentages, and removed them from the final count, and then reran the numbers to give them 50+%. So if you take the exhausted ballots and put them back in, they both have less than 50%. So one of the pitches of ranked choice voting is it gets a majority. It doesn't get an absolute majority. Absolute majority is an election term that has to do with specific 50%, majority, 51% of the total votes cast. And so once you exhaust ballots, you no longer get an absolute majority. And that's so they manufacture a majority. And so that's exhausted ballots in kind of a summary.
So I don't know if you've read through Idaho's proposal that they came up with, because look, this goes to my point of this is a complicated issue, and I had to sit there and kind of read through it multiple times, trying to understand what it was trying to do. So I can't imagine how confusing it is for grandma and grandpa that just want to go in and pick their favorite candidate, right? From ours, it looked like they had said, you don't have to pick all the candidates. If you pick your favorite one, and it seems like in round one, your favorite one would get counted. But then if you didn't pick anybody else, you're not voting in the runoff.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
you were completely thrown out of the runoff.
Yes. So let's just use Alaska's race, for instance, right? And so there's Sarah Palin, Nick Begich, and Mary Peltola, right? So there's 2 Republicans and a Democrat. And so right there, it opens up the option for splitting a vote right off the bat. Correct. And so you have Nick Begich who votes for, you have a whole bunch of voters that rank Nick Begich 1, and you have a whole bunch of people that didn't rank Sarah 2. And so you have a bunch of Republicans that ranked, Nick 1, but didn't rank Sarah 2, and ultimately had, a huge number of ballots exhausted. And even if only a percentage of those were actually ranked 2, then Sarah would have won the election. So that tells me that, it can have drastic impacts on people. And so when you're looking at like a rate like yours, top 4, it's going to have exhausted ballots as well. And so if you only rank one person and that person is eliminated, then your ballot is no longer counted. So that can go into, let's say you rank your first person and then the second person, and then there's 4 there. Then yes, your ballot could still be exhausted. So the encouragement for that, the whole design of the system is that you rank the entire ballot. That means you're voting for people that you don't want to win. I know it sounds terrible, but that's like, if you want the system to work properly and you want this thing to actually work the way they say it does, everyone has to fill out the ballot entirely. That's the only way it works.
So let me go back a little bit to make sure that I didn't understand this incorrectly. So let's say I go into the primary and I vote, or excuse me, the general, because it's just for the general election. And I vote for my first favorite candidate who gets 51%, or no, let's say 49%.
Okay.
And then, but I didn't pick anybody else. So when they do the second round, does my vote still count for that first person?
As long as he's still in first place. Yeah.
Okay. So but if it flips, then I'm screwed.
Correct. So what happens? So let's say that let's drop the percentage down, because 49 is really close to winning in that race. Okay. And so that means that person would most likely be in first place. But let's just use the Lisa Murkowski and Kelly Tabaka race.
Yeah.
So in that race, you had a Republican, a Democrat, and 2 more Republicans. And so the Republican dropped out of the race. So his votes went to the 2 Republicans, most likely. They're split up in, variety. Yeah. Then you had the Democrat, and then you had Lisa and Kelly. And Kelly and Lisa were pretty much neck and neck at that point. But as soon as you eliminate the Democrat, now those votes were transferred to Lisa and allowed Lisa to win. And so if you see how that if you look at the breakdown, if you don't vote for someone, it can hurt you. But if you're in the lower percentages, like what we found is majority of the time in ranked choice systems, the third or like that third, fourth, or even this, second place person is far more likely to win than the person in first place initially. So the person that's most like that should win the election is not winning the election.
because if they're in first place, then their votes are all staying the same, where everybody else is flipping.
Everyone else gets votes from the other people.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So allows you to also game the system. And so in that, what I pointed out was the Democrat votes went to Lisa. Well, in that race, which was a 2022 U.S. Senate election, the Democrat received the lowest percentage of the vote in a U.S. Senate election in Alaska's history.
Wow.
So from 2020 to 2022, Democrats changed their vote from voting for a Democrat to 30% shift from over 2-year period to voting for a Republican in the general. Why would they do that?
Wow.
They did that to game the system to block Kelly from winning the election. That's why they did that. Because they knew their Democrat couldn't win.
Yeah, well, that's what in Idaho.
And they didn't rank second. That was their first ranking. So the Democrat only got 10%. Lisa and the other one pretty much had neck and neck. So 2 Republicans had like 80%, 86% of the vote in the general.
Wow.
Yeah, weird, right?
Yeah.
These are not results that you want to see in your elections, I promise you. Yeah, and I got even weirder one for you. So in the U.S. House election, that was Palin's. 60% of the entire state voted for Republican, not once, not twice, but 3 separate times in 2022, and we have a Democrat in office.
Yeah.
And people wonder why the Democrats are behind this. So I'm curious. You said earlier in the show, this helps Democrats. Is that empirically proven?
It's empirically proven. I've actually met a lot of Democrats and heard a lot of Democrats say they don't like ranked choice. And Gavin Newsom vetoed ranked choice from taking effect in California. Jerry Brown, governor of California, doesn't like ranked choice voting. Nevada's Steve Sisolak spoke out against ranked choice. The DC Democrats sued the city to block ranked choice voting. The Arlington, DC Democrats, area people used ranked choice voting in their primary, didn't use it. That was this year. So lots of Democrats don't like it, but what I've seen is they like it in red areas.
I was just going to say, but those are all like deep blue areas where they don't want the mess.
So if you don't go, they don't want it. They don't want it in the blue areas because it's true in my opinion. I think we'll see with Seattle and Portland. My call is because they both went ranked choice, their city councils and mayors will go even more progressive, and so I believe that's what Gavin Newsom and some of these other guys are afraid of. They don't want the hardcore progressives winning in these, senior level seats. And I think that's where that goes.
Right.
But you see why they pitch it in red states for sure.
Yeah.
Mary Peltola is a perfect example why they do that.
Yeah. The Palin race gave me a lot of pause. It's like, wait a second, 60% of Alaskans voted for a Republican. Mm-hmm. And yet somehow magically with that Common Core election math, we have a Democrat in office in Alaska.
Yeah.
There was a tweet that really alarmed me a couple weeks ago that you said. You're really good on Twitter. You're like the election Corey DeAngelis is my comparison for you. Really good information on Twitter. You said that the administrative offices that administer these elections have made serious errors in counting and tabulating votes. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that was just this year too. I mean, there's lots of other examples, but I'll give you the Aspen, Colorado one. That was in 2009. They found that there's just a ballot error rate. They found that ballot errors in a tiny little town, right? For the most part, one election, they said they wanted ranked choice voting. They called it IRV back then. The next year they repealed it. And so 70% wanted it, 65% repealed it. And one of the big reasons why they repealed it is that ballot errors were 85 times what they were previously in a tiny little town. Yeah. Whoa. Just ballot errors. And so then you go into the election administrators. And so especially in the bigger cities and bigger states and stuff, you got to be really concerned. So in Oakland 2022 and Alaska 2022, both had major election issues. So Alaska, I'll tell you this, Alaska Supreme Court's the most troubling in my opinion, but Oakland's is just as bad. But the Supreme Court, who's liberal, our Supreme Court in Alaska is relatively liberal, determined that the Division of Elections violated state law when they removed Al Gross from the ballot last year. And so Al Gross was third position in the special general. In the special primary, he won third place. And so he had not withdrawn his name from the election prior to the deadline. And so the division removed his name anyway. And the Supreme Court determined that they violated state law when they did that. And so they shouldn't have done that. And that was purely a ranked choice issue. purely caused by ranked choice. And this had major ramifications because if you look at the ballots, if his name was on the ballot, he was in third place. That puts Mary in fourth. Mary is then eliminated. And that means it's either going to be Begich or Palin as our U.S. House of Representative in the special, which then that gives them a major leg up to win in the general and the regular.
It's weird to me how these election errors always add up to electing Democrats. It's a thing I noticed.
Yeah, weird. But you can see how like that one removing the only Democrat, not bringing another Democrat up to ultimately compete, ultimately allowed the splitting of the vote, and it seemed intentional from my observations. I'm not saying it was, but either way, they did violate state law. However you chalk it up. And in 2022 Oakland. It was the mayor and city council race there at school board, and the school board race in particular is the one they had drawn questions on. And so there was a candidate who was sponsored essentially by Fair Vote. So Fair Vote's the big Soros funded. That's true. That's accurate. 100% truth information funded by George Soros and his son and their Open Societies Foundation. That's on Capital Research, influencewatch.org. Type in Fair Vote. You can see it all. Very, very helpful information. It'll also be in my book about the breakdown of who's behind ranked choice financially. But in that you look at the money, where this money comes from, major issues there, and you're like, okay, so how do we fix this or how do we address this? It's the first thing is letting people know about it, make sure people are aware that this isn't your grassroots small time group that's doing this. This is big money, millionaire, billionaire people that are, in my opinion, just trying to disrupt the way we do elections. And so in Oakland's circumstance, Fair Vote injected, they had a candidate, and that candidate on paper lost initially. And so they reached out to the election administrators, Fair Vote, this third party group. Yeah. Why would they be reaching out to the election administrators? Well, they had them redo the tabulation. They said that they did the tabulation wrong. And they said that because they skipped this, so if someone skips ranking, so they go from 1 to 3 or they skip somebody, they're supposed to still count that next person as their second, not their third or whatever. And so they said that you did it wrong. And so the Oakland election administrator went back and retabulated and found that the person that they said won, who wasn't Fair Vote backed, didn't actually win. And this other person who was Fair Vote backed did win. Based upon the retabulation.
Weird how that works.
And that took, and they had to go to court over it. And it took 6 months, around 6 months for them to determine who actually won. So yeah, pretty awesome. That's in 1 year. Those are two. And the people are like, oh no, they'll figure it out. Alaska, that was just one issue this one time. Oakland's been using it for I don't know, about 20 years or something like that. San Francisco's been using it for 20 years. So I'm not really sure how long we're supposed to let these systems go they're still out
until there is poop on everybody's streets, just like San Francisco.
I'm just saying,
Well, it's kind of like government schools. We'll just keep funding mediocrity into infinity. Apparently we'll do the same thing with election systems too. Great, fantastic.
So what do you know about? I have a buddy that lives down in Utah because Utah has been doing some sort of pilot program with 20 something of their cities. But my buddy just said that over half of them are not going to go back into it because of the mess it caused. And that basically, kind of like you were talking about earlier, that so many people aren't selecting everybody that by the time you get to the very last round, 20% of the people have now chosen the candidate versus everybody else that participated on the first round.
Yeah, I'll give you a crazy example of that is in 2010, I believe, San Francisco. And they ranked 19 rounds of voting to finally get to the final winner.
Holy cow.
And they said, they're like, okay, when you do the total, they're like, oh, remember ranked choice voting gets you the majority. So they're like, oh yeah, we got the majority. And this person, claimed they got a majority, but they only got 21% of the total original vote.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah. It's great, and so we went from candidates winning with 48, 49% of the vote to now winning with only 20% of the vote.
Wow.
And somehow that's a majority. I'm not really, and so it gets pretty crazy. And that's a real thing. And then, look at New York, they used ranked choice voting for their mayor election in 2021 for the first time. And they had 150,000 exhausted ballots.
Dang.
So 15%, 14%, something like that, of the total votes cast. 150,000 ballots cast. I mean, I wake up in the morning and go and vote, and I definitely would be really upset if I knew my votes were being thrown out and not counted to the final total. Why would you vote again?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I've met people that have said they won't vote again because of their experience with ranked choice voting.
Dustin, your mic's off.
Yeah.
No, it's still off. Your mic isn't on.
Weird. I clicked
There you
it.
go.
Yeah, I clicked it. 3 years into this, and I'm still not good with the Zoom type calls. Anyway, I apologize. This drives down turnout, doesn't it? Because people, Donald Trump has for right or wrong, said that elections aren't secure, and there are big questions about elections that are not answered. This seems like this is not a great time to do this when we already don't trust our ballots, but it seems like this will further erode trust in our election system. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, the Trump has come to Alaska and spoke against ranked choice voting. And there's been lots of really great people. Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, some people like him, some people don't, but he spoke out against ranked choice voting. Gavin Newsom is another person, spoke out against ranked choice voting. It's cross party lines, and if you know how to read data and understand data, it's just the cities and the people that use ranked choice voting ultimately get rid of it. So 85 cities in the United States have used ranked choice voting at one point or another and have repealed it since the 1920s. They just called it something different at the time. They called it STV or IRV, instant runoff voting. But these things have been in practice for 100 years. So this isn't a new system. The reality is like people get it in place, that these activists, they put it in place for whatever reason. Back in those days, the main objective was the elimination of the political parties. But there's a good book called More Parties or No Parties that talks about this specifically, saying that ranked choice voting will never work. And it comes from a progressive standpoint, will never work in the United States because of the duopoly and the two-party system. So it's essentially advocating we either get more parties or we don't have any parties for a system like this to work. And that's a problem because that our party system is not going away. So we're using these experimental systems that ultimately don't work, and then they fail. So then we have to go back and people like me or people like you guys have to go in and repeal these things and go back to the system that we had prior. So if you look at like Aspen, they repealed it and it went back to the previous system, and they're still using the traditional plurality voting now. So.
Okay. So what's actually, let me, before I do that, is there pushback now? So now you're trying to repeal it. Mm-hmm. Is Fair Vote and all these big progressive organizations now mobilizing to try and keep it?
Yeah, there's a couple of repeals actually happening here in the United States right this year. Alaska has a repeal going on, and then Minnesota has a repeal at Minnetonka City has a repeal currently going on, and both of those were done by citizens, local citizens. In Minnetonka, they just recently passed ranked choice voting through a ballot initiative. And when I was talking about Fair Vote and how they're some of their methods, this one they did $140,000 ad spend to try to get ranked choice voting to like a campaign there in Minnetonka. There's only 10,000 voters in Minnetonka, and they spent 140,000, and the local residents only had $4,000 to defend themselves.
Wow!
So it just gives you an idea. Here in Alaska, they spent $7 million, and the previous group to try to stop ranked choice voting only spent $600,000. In Nevada, they spent $1.4 million. And the group below, it spent $14 million, and the group below them only had $1.4 million to defend Nevada. So that you could see that the correlation, they're outspending everybody by 10 times more than what they had than the group that's trying to oppose it. And so your local citizens don't really have a chance in any way, shape, or form to defend themselves from these guys. The other favorite that they like to do is do financial complaints, saying that you're violating state laws or this, that, and the other. And they did that to us. And, it racked up $75,000 of just legal bills for us. Just legal bills we've had to pay just to defend ourselves. That's not even paying any fines or fees or anything. So, but that's why it's so important for people to understand we're not getting out here and advocating this. and we're doing this at little to no cost for people. Most of the time, I don't charge anything to do presentations or talk to people. I just want to be really get out there and let people know that this is a real thing. Not only are they going to tell me what I'm allowed to do, tell me how I'm allowed to speak. I can't talk about how I'm the guy that wrote the repeal, otherwise I'll get fined, things like that. That's the reality of it. And so I don't want you to have to be me, here in 2 years or 5 years, whenever you guys have ranked choice and you're trying to repeal it. I hope you guys don't have that. And that's my objective, to get out in front of it.
Dustin, you're off again, bro.
I did it again. I'm so sorry. So I'm sure you're paying attention to what's going on in Idaho. We have a socialist group that is behind this. They've co-opted the veterans and all that stuff. Our very moderate, formerly libertarian governor has signed on to it. Why would a Republican sign on to something like this? Any ideas there?
Money. Most of it, Andrew Yang is one of the guys who's also pushing this. Yeah. There's a couple other groups, but there's a couple of Republicans. We call them Soros Republicans. I do, and Stop RCV and some other people have labeled them Soros Republicans because they are paid for. They're in some way, shape, or form. Lisa Murkowski, as soon as she won, she's done a whole bunch of promotions about ranked choice voting for Fair Vote. She's gone to Fair Vote. Mary Peltola has gone to Minnesota and done presentations for Fair Vote, done presentations in Oregon for Fair Vote. And then these places are pushing ranked choice voting in those cities and those places. So you can see, like, it doesn't take long for these connections to build, and eventually they're way out of hand. And you have U.S. congressional members, U.S. Senate, and people like that actively promoting these systems, even if they're not good for the citizens or the voters. And they're definitely not, and especially in Idaho, they're not representative of the people there. I can assure you that.
I'm curious. It seems like you've studied this a lot more than we have, and you've studied this just a ton, which is fantastic. Is there a better voting system than the one that we have now? Obviously, ranked choice is not it, but is there a better one?
There's lots of other pitches about ranked choice, of different variations of ranked choice, like star voting and approval voting. I'll say that the good news about those two, everyone loops them together. So ALEC actually has a framework about ranked choice voting that they put out. And it talks about, it's easier to read, but so that in American federalism, states are the fundamental level of government. This includes primacy over state and local elections and over many aspects of federal elections. Special interests are pushing a novel and complicated election process called ranked choice voting, RCV, and also related systems like approval voting and star voting. Often they try to enact these in local jurisdictions, creating a conflict between local and state election processes. They have also introduced federal legislation to force RCV on the states. This legislation would prohibit RCV in similar states and systems in state and local elections. So they've put out a framework essentially against ranked choice voting. And in that, they talk about the approval voting and star voting, and they're kind of looping them together. They're not really the same systems. And what I found is approval people and star people don't like ranked choice voting because, and I personally don't like ranked choice voting for the ballot exhaustion issue. And potentially, like, you filling out your ballot wrong could ultimately lead to ballot being exhausted.
Right.
And for star and approval, you don't have those risks. So you don't have the ballot exhaustion risk nearly as high
Right.
because if you can rank everyone 5 or 1s and it doesn't actually cause you to lose, like have your ballot tossed out. So that little old lady that ranked everyone 5s, her ballot won't get thrown out. So it's a little better. But what I label all of these systems as is multiple choice voting. And so if you rank more than one person per race, you have the ability to, that's multiple choice voting. So it just loops them all into that category. And I don't believe those systems are good because of the potential complexity. What also leads to is in Australia, who has used this system for 100 years, gets to like 100-page ballots. So where like your ballots like AA and AB and AZ and ZZ and things like that, like crazy.
Really?
Yes. I've heard from someone from Australia that spoke up at a presentation of mine that specifically said that I was 100% accurate in that statement as well.
You want to talk about driving
Wow.
down voter participation, and
Yeah.
basically it's a
I mean,
form
like,
of voter suppression, right?
Well,
Nobody
one of the key
wants to do
things is
that.
people say, well, Australia's this. Well, Australia's like 90% white too. So that's another issue. So like, you can't compare Australia to the United States. The United States is only 60% white. What I also found is demographic concern, big time demographic concern. In Oakland, where poor minority communities are far more likely to have ballot errors, far more likely to have ballot complexity issues, not to fill out the ballot correctly. You select one person versus rich white areas where they're far more likely to fill out the ballot entirely, have a lot less ballot errors, et cetera. So you can't compare Australia to the United States. They're not the same place.
Yeah.
Australia, they have compulsory voting where you're required by law to vote too. And
Oh
so
my gosh.
comparing their turnout to ours isn't really comparable. Canada, Ireland, and Australia all three use ranked choice voting. It is a colonial voting method. It's pushed by colonists. So if you look at why would we even consider that?
Yeah. Well, I didn't even. I never even would have thought about asking about that. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's all really, really fascinating stuff. I mean, I think we're going to have you back on again eventually too, to talk about this some more as it progresses. So you're talking about, Dustin and I are going to be launching an effort soon here very, very shortly to really kind of, I think, take this issue on. What's your advice to citizens, to activists in Idaho, if we're going to be outspent, which we will be, unequivocally, it won't even be close. When you're out, if I'm out talking to people and my family and friends that don't really pay attention to politics like I do,
just say no to signing. Don't sign anything. That's the main thing. They're going to push those petitions out, and they're going to say, "Oh, this is the greatest thing ever." Open primaries and this, and the only thing you can do is tell people not to sign at this point. Until they actually get it through the ballot initiative process, it's still a struggle. And there's no guarantee that we'll actually get it done. But I can tell you, the more education events like this you do, the more opportunities you get out in front of people and do just little, meet 10, 15 people. I've done events with 500. I've done events with 30. I've done events with 10. I've done events with 2. I don't care. Just because those 2 people can go tell 10, et cetera. And it's all that matters is just getting that compounding going and just telling people how important it is for them not to sign that initiative, not to sign the petition, because if they can just not get it there, that's the best thing. So there are circumstances where they didn't get it. So, one person, one vote is excellent. Focusing on that, just telling people that ranked choice voting violates that because it is multiple choice voting. And you asked earlier, do I think that there's better system? Probably, maybe, I don't know, but there's not going to be any system that people understand better.
Right.
Our system, people understand it. That's why it's important. And that's why even like 3rd graders, 2nd graders understand this type of voting system. And that's, even though we want to say, oh, well, it may not be the best, but the reality is that simplicity piece is incredibly valuable, more valuable than people want to take it for granted for.
And maybe that's, I guess, kind of what I was getting at with my question is because I'm going to go on the assumption they're going to have enough money to pay to get the signatures that they need to get it on the ballot. And certainly I'm going to be out telling people, don't even sign it. Don't fall for it doesn't mean you agree with it. We just want the people to vote on it. Bull crap. But it's before the people. Is it the confusion, right? Like I try to explain to my grandpa what ranked choice voting is, and he's like, "What the hell are you talking?"
Yeah, I mean, my granddad, I wrote a repeal. You think my granddad, he's been to presentations that I've done. I still couldn't tell me what ranked choice voting is. So like, don't feel bad. It's an issue. It is, and that's why I do these presentations. We have a book called Ranked Choice Voting: Illusion of Choice that'll be available this year. There's another book by Jason Sneed from the Heritage Project and Honest Elections Project in Trent, England, at Oklahoma. They've written a book. It's not out yet, but and then I have a 30-part video series, little animated, quick video series that I've put together about ranked choice voting.
Did you say 30?
30-part. Yep, that's right.
Nice. Okay.
See, if it takes 30 parts to explain it, we shouldn't be doing it.
Well, that's the point. It's like it also goes into historical references, and all my videos are sourced. My book has over 100 sources in it. So it's very, very well sourced, and it's the videos are so popular with Arizona that the Arizona GOP wanted me to white label them for the Arizona GOP, and we did an
Wow.
in-kind donation to them for those videos. So they are now using those for their own independent uses.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So I'm
amazing.
happy to help wherever I have to, and stop this wherever, from spreading. And unfortunately, I know that the money is a major concern, and there is no money to be had on this side of the table. Like when it comes to conservatives, finding money to combat these guys one-to-one is not there. So you gotta be
Yeah.
smart and find different ways to get the message out.
Yeah, no, we understand
Wow.
I mean,
Yep.
this group that they work that is doing this ballot initiative, they know how to import money, and they say they don't, but to get Medicaid expansion on the ballot, they needed $450,000 of union cash. We get it. I worked the PAC to oppose Medicaid expansion. We were outspent like 3.2 million to like $60,000. There is no money. So again, I'm going to make the same pitch to the grassroots people. Find people who support this or excuse me, oppose this, and donate,
Yeah.
because it takes every dollar of grassroots
Yeah,
to
I
get
think
this done.
donate and volunteer. That's another big
Yeah.
one. So our whole signature drive in Alaska was driven by volunteers, and a lot of the work that people have done to set up events and do things have been volunteer. And you can get involved in lots of ways. At every event I go to, I highly encourage citizens to not only donate, yes, absolutely, but also give your time. And if you can't donate money, definitely volunteer your time.
Yeah, in a couple of weeks, like I said, Greg and I are working on a project to fight this. And if you want us to come to, and we're going to see if we can get Phil and probably Trent, England from Oklahoma up here to talk about this. But if you want to have us come to your event, your small group setting, your Stand Up for Idaho or whatever, we are more than happy to do it because it is really important. Brian Smith over in Idaho Falls nailed it. He said, if ranked choice voting passes in Idaho, we're done. Game over. Game over. We're the next Colorado. Game over.
Yep. And there's actually a book about Colorado,
Yeah.
about how they won the state.
Yeah.
And
The blueprint. Yeah.
That's my second Bible.
It's a really good book,
Dead serious.
and you'll learn a lot. And it starts with the nonprofits.
Yeah.
And so that's the key to the entry and the unions and things like that. That's how they've got where they've got. And so they've done the same thing here in Alaska, and yes, they will do the same thing in Idaho.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Wow.
Especially with all your California implants.
Well, here's the thing. People don't realize this. If they're from California and they live in the city of Boise, they're communists, right? Like straight up communists. But if they're from California and they're outside of Boise city limits, they're actually more conservative than most of the native Idahoans.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest phenomenon. I love those folks.
Yeah, I've experienced this as well, but you don't put it past them to still vote for stupid people or stupid policies.
That's true. Good point.
That's my thoughts.
Absolutely right.
Shoot.
I love California people, but they almost get easily tricked than anybody else. I mean, they wouldn't have had to deal with the situations they were dealing with, regardless of how smart they were, if they didn't, make really bad decisions voting originally.
Yeah, that's true.
Awesome. Well, Phil, we really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Yeah,
Again, would love to have you on again soon as this fight progresses here in Idaho. And like Dustin said, I mean, we're all in this kind of, if they can do it in Idaho, they can do it anywhere. And so we really want to kind of be at the forefront of fighting this thing. So we really appreciate you coming on.
And link up with some guys out of Arizona and like Trent, people like that. There's a pretty solid network that's been established and growing over the next. So I know that there will be some Stop RCV events next year. I think you guys should definitely attend those if you can.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks again.
Thanks, sir.
Phil.
Take care.
Have a good one.
All right. That was Phil Izon. He is the director of Ranked Choice Education Association. You can see his website at the bottom. Yeah. No, that was an excellent interview and really knew his stuff. And I mean, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, I hope everybody, if you watch one interview, I would tell everybody, watch this one. Okay. If you're in Idaho, and this is a must-watch interview because, I mean, I'm kind of blown away by how bad it was in other places and the problems that it's caused. So really, really good information from Phil. So I appreciate him coming on.
Yeah. Again, if it takes you, if you need a calculator to explain your voting system, I think you're doing it wrong. And my question about which system is best was really because political theory is fascinating to me. And the system that we have now is terrible. Like, it's bad because, like, if it's
Yeah.
bad, if a majority says we're going to live under this tyranny, well, that kind of sucks. But going from bad to worse, not a good situation. Not a good situation at all.
Yeah. So before we jump topics, do we want to play that one video that you uploaded? Because that's one of his videos, right? Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. Phil did one of these videos, and it's really good stuff. Where is it? You can do it. I'll let you do it.
Here, I'll do it because this one I can tell. I'm pretty sure I'm clicking the right video. So here, let me play this real quick.
I'm the guy can't operate a mic, so you do it.
Yeah.
What flavors would you like?
Chocolate, blueberry, strawberry, Rocky Road.
Okay. Well, based on our new system of selecting ice cream, we tabulated your state's choices into a very simple system that takes weeks longer to tabulate, and even though Alaska has a smaller population than most major cities, Alaska was the last in the country for election results. Based on this new system that is great with no flaws is that you all get pistachio. Ranked choice voting is anything but simple. Did you know in 2022, the first year of using ranked choice voting, Alaska had the lowest voter turnout in history?
Yeah, and that's just a segment of a longer video. I actually saw the longer video, but that's the kind of stuff they're putting out, and just the most simple terms that you can possibly look at. And I love that you're getting pistachio, which no, I'm good.
It's fantastic. And again, I'll make this pitch because I got to make it every time. But I don't know Phil's website. Like I've visited it, but if there's a donate button, go and donate, support him. He's going to be a valuable ally as we fight this. And dude knows the stuff. That's really impressive.
Yeah,
really impressive. And
excellent.
It's funny to me, Greg, that the people pushing this are the inclusion warriors, right? Make sure all the rainbow warriors. But it hurts minorities. It suppresses voter turnout, which they say they're against, right? And it just, but they just want to win. They just want to win. They don't care about how they win. They don't care if minorities participate, apparently. They don't care if they're driving down voter turnout and participation, as long as they win.
Right. Well, and that's why they want to open the primary, but ranked choice is only for the general election, right? So when they get into the primary and there's 10 candidates, everybody in the whole freaking state, except for the people in Boise proper, are going to be putting affiliates Republican, and then everybody's just going to be a Republican, and you're going to end up with the top 4 Republicans, right? No Constitution Party candidates are ever going to be on the ballot again. No Libertarian parties or candidates are ever going to be on there again. Independents, they're not going to be on there. You're going to have to put Republican in Idaho for 95% of the races, and so that's what they're going to do. And then there's 4 Republican candidates on the ballot, designed to confuse you, and that way the Democrats can put all their effort behind a Republican. And yeah, it's.
Oh wait,
anyway.
So wait. It hurts minorities. It drives down turnout, and it gives you fewer options in the general election. That's really smart, guys. That's real good, real good. Right. We should do. And it's confusing as hell. Great, fantastic. And they can't even count them correctly. Great. Yeah. Let's do this.
Sounds like a great system.
Goodness gracious.
Oh my gosh.
When will we learn? We will never learn.
Yeah.
But.
All right. So did you want to talk about the Woodward thing?
Okay. So. There are 2. There are actually 2 videos, and Phil just dropped off. Bye, Phil. Thank you for coming. So one thing we want to do on this show is whenever there's a new campaign ad or video a group puts out or something, we want to just do a quick review. And there were 2 put out this week. There's one from Stop Idaho Rhinos. I love the video, the content. It's a little annoying because you hear a certain sound over and over again, but it's about Abby Lee. And it's styled after Matt Getz's, I think that's how you say that, his attack on
Gates. I think it's Matt
Is
Gates.
It Gates? I don't know. The guy with the big hair in Florida, not Vivek. Anyway, a style on his attack on Mike Simpson, which was really good. And then Jim Woodward, who just announced that he's challenging Scott Herndon for District 1 Senate. Herndon took out Woodward in the last election by like 8 points. It's not particularly close. He put out a campaign ad. Let's watch his first. His is spectacularly bad, like really bad. And have you seen this yet, Greg? Have you seen it?
I did watch
Oh, you
his ad.
spoiled the surprise. Let's
Sorry.
watch it real quick, and then I want to get your take on it before I get mine, because it's really bad.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were rolling it here. I got it. Here we go.
I'm Woodward. I live here in Idaho. I'm running for the Idaho State Senate because I believe in Idaho. I grew up here. I was educated here. My family has been in Idaho since 1910 when my great-grandfather arrived in Elk River to help build the lumber mill there. I care about Idaho and the people who make it such a great place. Our quality of life stems from hardworking Idahoans who believe in their individual freedoms, yet still come together as a community to take care of a neighbor in need. People who also recognize that some projects are bigger than the individual or the community and are best taken on by all of us here in Idaho. Opportunities abound in Idaho because of past decisions, fiscally conservative decisions, level-headed decisions, mainstream Idaho decisions. I want to ensure that the next generation of Idahoans have the same opportunities, which means supporting our education system, investing in infrastructure, and managing our public lands. Our quality of life also comes from responsible and responsive government by regular Idahoans, people vested in our past achievements and our future successes. Raising a family and running a business here, I am one of those people. I will work to keep taxes low, accountability high, and to ensure that government is limited to its appropriate role. As a lifelong Idaho Republican with 2 previous terms in the Idaho Senate, it is clear that our recent bout of extremist politics is steering us away from our Idaho values and Idaho vision. I am ready to right the ship. 21 years of Navy service instilled in me a sense of duty and loyalty to our state and to our nation. The effort requires your help, though. Let's work together to keep Idaho a great place for family, for work, and for play. I'm Jim Woodward, and I approve this message.
What are you thinking, Greg? What are you thinking? Tell me what you're thinking, buddy.
So many things. Well, first you got to love we always got to talk about how long you've lived in Idaho, because that's important to always mention in your campaign ads. But I was falling asleep. I mean, the guy is not very motivational. I don't for the life of me, I guess I can't figure out how conservative voters can't see past this crap. I believe in individual liberty and I believe in limiting government. I'm like, dude, I don't think that dude ever voted against anything that limited government when he was in office.
Yep.
So I just, oh my gosh.
The thing that got me, if you look and if you want to go watch, it's on Facebook somewhere, but right at about 15 seconds left, he looks at the camera and it's like the most uncomfortable smile, like a Mike Pence smile, right? Like, just like he's forcing it. And the ad's weird, right? Like he's walking around, like you'd think he'd have like his grandkids or his wife or somebody. It's a weird ad. It's too long. And then I think what really got me was the whole, there are some problems that are solved by more than the individual. It's like, yeah, but you're basically advocating for collectivism, which is, a form of socialism. He's running to the left of Scott Herndon in a Republican primary.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
so
like you said,
boring.
there was so much wrong with that ad. It was bad. There was even parts when I was watching it earlier, it seemed like where the audio was even up too high. Like the audio was outdoing his voice and stuff like that you just can't have. And of course we had to get the whole extremism thing in there because why not? Yeah.
The one thing he didn't say, I'm a common sense conservative, which I was a little bit disappointed, but he did say mainstream conservative.
Mainstream, yeah. The first time I heard that, I was like, oh, he wants to be part of the Main Street Caucus. It
was just bad. Look, we're gonna have Scott on sometime soon because he declared his re-election campaign a couple weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. Jim, you're welcome on the show as always. Come tell us why that ad was great and tell us why you should have your seat back, because That was bad.
Yeah.
That was just bad.
Yeah.
You think with all the money that these people have, and dude, he's probably gotten 1,000, billion contributions from, special interests because they all hate Scott Herndon. Do you think with all the money that they have, they could hire competent messaging people and video people? But they don't. And I don't get it. I do not get it for the life of me.
Yeah. Endless supplies of money. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let's do the other one. So it's John Haida over at Stop Idaho Rhinos put this out, and it's a nice attack ad on Abby Lee. It does again get a little annoying toward the end of it, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, yeah. So, speaking of money, John's probably doing this with almost no budget, and he's just fighting the good fight. And so sure, maybe it sounds cheesy and stuff, but I love the concept. If you haven't seen Matt Gates's, go to his. I don't know where you'd find it now. It might be buried under a lot of other tweets, but he's got a whole bunch of tweets that are under. There's a tweet where he goes after Mike Simpson because Mike Simpson said something about him, and Matt Gates put together a video like that, good. And it was really good. And he just had all the PACs and businesses that Simpson has bought and paid for, and for whatever. But
I do like John. John did a great job with this, and my guess is just a hunch. You're going to see a lot more of this from the people on our side of the fence because these folks. Like you look at, and somebody brought this up. They're like, well, go look at Scott Herndon's money. Go look at who he's bought and paid for by. I think if I remember correctly, the commenter said, okay, I went and looked, and there was like one association type. It was like the Farm Bureau or something like that. There was one. I remember a couple years ago, Merrill Beeler. I don't know why this one sticks out. Merrill Beeler of Ledor ran against. I think that was a race against Dorothy Moon. And I went and looked at his contributions at one point. There were 32 contributions, 2 from in his district for like $200, right? And they were probably like his wife or sister and like grade school teacher or whatever, right?
Yeah.
The rest was all special interest cash from these Boise PACs who just need to buy favor, right? They need to influence him if he gets reelected.
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot more of this. I think it's really effective, because I think people are tired of bought and paid for politicians. I really do. So good work, John. Really good work.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, like you said, maybe the music could be a little bit different and get a different money sound. I think there's different money sounds out there that could make it a little bit better, but overall, really good stuff. And dude, I don't know. My head is still on the ranked choice fight, man, and how this crazy stuff. Like, I can't believe anybody would want that system. And it is funny how places that are blue, a lot of them want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Because of how awful it is, because they want that control. And that's ultimately what the liberals here want, is they want control back. They're losing this state because the people have woken up, the groups here have woken up to what's happening, and now they're fighting back and taking Idaho back. Now that phrase has been ruined.
It's interesting because you know this as well as I do, Greg. When liberals lose, they can't just take the L, regroup, replan, and approach the situation differently, kind of like with Roe v. Wade. It wasn't about, okay, well, how do we work on abortion in a way that Americans will support and that can make it through Congress? It wasn't about game planning it. No, it was, we lost. We need to change the entire game and pack the court because we lost. That's exactly what's happening here. Liberals cannot sell their ideas in Idaho, so they either package them as Republican investments or they change the rules of the game. That's what's going on, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, that's why on the open primaries website, I don't remember what the whole thing is called. They talk about Republican endorsements. They don't talk about any of the Democrats that are supporting because they want
Weird.
Republicans on that site to go see all the Republican endorsements. If they see that far left extremists on Twitter, and there's a ton of them, who all of them are, if they see them listed as supporters, they're going to be like, oh, well, maybe not. Maybe I don't want to support that. But they're going to keep using people like Butch Otter. They've already got Butch on the front page of their website, because they know that it's stupidity like that is going to help them get victory, right? And that's
If only there was a group out there to point out that liberals are supporting this. If only, Greg.
If only.
Somebody should do that. Somebody should point out that it's the far left. This again, it's Butch Otter's out of politics. He left after three terms. Oh my gosh, we need term limits here in Idaho. Goodness gracious, we need to. But look at who was supporting it. Front and center was Scott Syme.
Yeah.
Scott Syme lost his primary because he wasn't conservative enough and he couldn't sell himself to voters. So what does he want to do? Change the game.
Change the game.
Oh, he's so bitter. Oh, he's so bitter.
Oh, boy. Well, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'm excited, man. Lots of big work ahead, and I'm excited to really get in this fight. This is a big fight for Idahoans, so I hope you guys are all ready. Before I forget, if you're not on our Rumble channel, we're continuing to make that grow. Rumble is right now taking a pretty big stand against censorship, and I'm not saying they're perfect, but they're the best chance that we have right now heading into 2024. So we have exclusive content. In fact, I just put another video up on Rumble that's only on Rumble that talks about a potential alternative way of doing debates, and I think we'll maybe get into that another day. But
that debate last night was so bad. That was so bad.
Awful. Yeah, I'm going to do a reaction video, I think, and talk about that in a separate Freedom Growth video coming up.
Before we go, Greg, here's what I want you to do. You have some paper in front of you. Go ahead and write down which one of the two of us you want to vote off the island.
Oh my gosh, that was so stupid.
That was probably the worst question that I've ever seen asked in a debate ever.
Yeah.
Bar none. That was terrible. That was awful.
Yeah. I don't I don't understand why the GOP keeps doing this. Why are you doing this? In the primary, I get it. In the general, you're going to have to kind of deal with it a little bit. But in the primary, what are you doing? Have freaking Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson and Glenn Beck or somebody asking these people questions. It would be a lot better.
You know who I would actually like to see asking questions is weirdly enough, I'd actually like to see Libs of TikTok girl, but I don't think she's reached that stature yet. Whatever her name is. But Charles Cook of the National Review, he's well spoken, he's articulate, he's smart, he's savvy. I would love to see somebody like him, David Harsanyi, the people who aren't just like bomb throwers, but who are very thoughtful about the approach to conservative politics. Maybe one bomb thrower, but like just for funsies. But this is what they're doing is not workable. It is terrible what they're doing.
No, and when you have 7 candidates, it's just all the handlers of these candidates are like, you have to interrupt. You've got to interrupt. Just keep interrupting. And so I don't know that the Fox News should have been cutting the mics. As soon as your time's up, your mic's off, right? If you're not the one speaking, your mics are off. But they like the fireworks, I guess. But man, it got so bad, I almost stopped. I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't. But because I'm going to do a reaction video, I'm like, I'll suffer through this freaking thing. But it's bad. Like it was one of the worst debates I've ever seen.
Did you hear that, dear listeners? Greg is willing to sacrifice his ears and his soul for you. I hope you're all appreciative.
Right.
I'm not going to watch it. I saw some clips on YouTube or Twitter or whatever. Like I'm a Ron DeSantis guy right now. And he had some really good lines. I saw like Chris Christie's lame Donald Duck line. I'm not even going to repeat it because it's so bad. And then I heard that Mike Pence was talking about sleeping with his wife, which I never want to hear anything sexual from Mike Pence ever for any reason. That was terrible.
That one was way more cringy to me because he was like, and just a full disclosure here. I've been sleeping with a teacher for 38 years, and full disclosure, like it was so bad, dude. I almost felt bad for the guy because nobody's laughing. Everybody's like, ew. I don't
Why
want to
does-
know about your freaking sex life. Like,
Why
what the
does
fuck is wrong
anybody
with
want
you?
Pence to run? I think my theory is that Pence has nothing better to do, and his wife doesn't actually want him at home. Like, okay,
Yeah, there you
we
go.
may be sleeping together, but I don't want you at home. Get a hobby, and I guess your hobby is running for president, Mike.
Oh, it was bad. It's just bad. It's bad all
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
We're so screwed.
Anyway,
We are so
yeah.
screwed.
Well, you got anything else? You got anything coming up? You're going to be
No.
gone next week, right?
I am going to be gone. I'll be back in 2 weeks. I'm going to go
Okay.
to the swamp next week, which is always fun. In fact, I have to go to the swamp 3 times in the next 3 weeks. 3 weeks. It's going to be a lot. I'm going to come back and have to take a very long shower. But I think next week we're going to try. It's not locked down right now, but we're going to try to have Carrie Hanks. She announced a contest. I am so excited for this one. Carrie is so sweet and very conservative against Mr. P Poop and Period over in
Gosh.
Rigby. Rod, red flag, Furnace. Rod, please come on the show. We'd love to have you. We're trying to have Carrie Hanks next week. We're trying to have Brett Skidmore in 2 weeks. He announced a challenge to Josh Wheeler, who defeated Chad Christensen. Races are heating up, folks. This is where it gets fun. This is where it gets to be a lot of fun. So I hope you guys keep tuning in, and I hope you find value. If you have suggestions for the show, if there's somebody that you want us to have on, please drop a comment, and we'll do our best to make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. I think that's all I've got for tonight. So with that, thank you all again for tuning in. Please be sure to share our video, especially this video. Again, we'd ask you to share all the videos, but this one in particular is of extreme importance. And so we'd ask you to share this with any groups that you're a part of, email lists, Facebook groups, all that kind of stuff. Share it with everybody that can. So anyway, with that, let's roll our stinger and we are out of here. Good night and God bless.